Hello, and welcome back to my channel. Alright, here's how this is going to go today. We're going to talk about the videos that are coming up on the channel. We're going to break down what I've figured out from Kind of Funny's podcast and live stream. And we're going to talk a little bit about the gameplay and a little things that I've noticed that I'm not sure what they mean. We have a few videos coming out. They are scheduled up until June 12th, I believe, and here are some previews of what those videos thumbnails are, a little bit of a teaser. Today we're covering gameplay and information from Kind of Funny, as I said, and there won't be any audio from the game. It'll just be me talking about things that I've noticed and things that we now know about the game. So feel free to put this on as a podcast style video or just play in the background while you work. We'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to start with the information we've learned from the live streams, and then I'll move into breaking down the footage. As long as this isn't a 40-minute video, we should be able to do both. If you missed the original video, there's a 40-minute video of everything I was able to find from every article, interview, live stream, and podcast that was available at that time. So we covered, I think, almost everything. There's a few things I did miss, and hopefully we'll cover all of those today. We're going to start with characters. So if you're not here for character spoilers, I will attempt to put up a timestamp for when we're finished with character spoilers and kind of on to the menu items and story beats that maybe aren't as spoilery. So let's start with Dollman. The Kind of Funny podcast, that was the character that they seem to really enjoy. What we know about Dollman is that he does have a backstory, but it's very simple. We already know it. So Dollman's claw got stuck in a doll when it separated from his haw. We were told that by Fragile in the trailer. It's confirmed. They told us, yep, they gave us a 2-minute story, and we all just were like, okay. So I don't think we're going to get any extra information on Dollman. I think it's just that simple. I think he's similar to Hartman, and the way that Hartman's story was just, I died, now my heart looks funny. They say that he can drown in water. He's at your waist, so if he is to get stuck in the river while you're walking, that he will go from talking to kind of spluttering his dialogue, and as soon as you get out of the water, he will make a comment, or he'll continue talking. Now, one thing they did say is that whenever he is thrown up, or they clarified thrown like a softball, so I think you really just chunk him out and he goes and looks around. They said that he will go out, tag all the enemies, and return to you, and that he'll say something along the lines of, did I do a good job? And Sam will be like, of course you did, buddy. And then after that dialogue is said, Sam basically pulls him back in with the string. So that's kind of funny. I think you can kind of let him go as far as his string allows, and then you reel him back in. We get confirmation about Rainy. In the Kind of Funny live stream, they say Rainy is a still mother, so that is confirmed in game, which is great for the theories that we've been making. They also cut themselves off. They say Rainy is a still mother with a 7-month, and the way that they cut themselves off, to me, did not seem like it was a spoiler. But I think they just had something else they wanted to move on to. Some people thought that they weren't supposed to mention that, but from what I can tell about the requirements, Hideo did not tell them that that was not allowed. So Rainy does appear to be a still mother, and that tracks with what we've seen about her baby possibly not actually being in her stomach, and could be the reason that she has the core fall ability, maybe because of her connection to the beach. Tarman seems to be a favorite. He is obviously the captain. He is the one driving the ship. We know that he lost his hand and that it is in the other world, and that is why he's able to drive the ship, which is, again, a great thing. We were able to figure that out in our theory videos from the trailer. We know that he has a really excellent cutscene. That's all that they have told us about Tarman. I feel like they are just teasing us, and that he's just really cool. That's all I can find about Tarman. We have the same issue with Tomorrow. All they will say is that she's very cool, but we don't get any more stuff about her. We just know that there's a mission that involves Tomorrow. All other story beats, such as Neil, the preppers, the distro people, the ghost mech, Magellan man, etc. Neil, we're going to talk about in where the episodes might be. So if you're looking for information about them, we don't necessarily have new character story arcs or anything, any information like that, but we're going to talk about where they probably go in the story a little bit later. Let's talk about weapons. In terms of weapons, it's a little disjointed, so bear with me, but let's start off with the holographic grenade we mentioned in the last video. It will allow you to throw the grenade, and human enemies that see a BT come out or a hologram of a BT will be scared off and run away. We found out today that the holographic grenade can also show other things, such as were mentioned in the video, an ostrich or yourself. They also said BTs with an S, so I assume maybe multiple types of BTs could be shown. But the ostrich was quite funny, and apparently you can get a hologram of yourself walking around to distract enemies. Other new weapons include the blood boomerang, which appears to use your own blood, likely from a blood bag like in the old game, where you put the blood on the boomerang and they said it pretty much one-shots all the BTs in the area, and that's the easiest way to fight off the BTs. There's been no confirmation if you can still pee in the game, which I know is such a weird thing to talk about, but it was a pretty big mechanic in the last game, and it was funny. We do know that there have been no EX grenades 0, 1, or 2 in the game that I've heard from any of the preview players. It appears that that's not going to be a thing. However, I do think the pay mechanic will still be there because Hideo always has some sort of excrement joke. I mean, I think that's his sort of humor, so I wouldn't count out the paying ability yet. Let's talk about the old attacks that seem to still be in the game and the older weapons that seem to have made their way back. So we have the Strand attack still. You can see that in the gameplay footage. You can still pick up cargo, hold it in your hand, take it from enemies. There are some vehicular additions that allow you to pick up things as you drive by, and that's, I think, an awesome attachment. It's a attachment that you can gain. It's probably from a prepper, someone like that. It's basically something that you will earn, and you will not start the game with it. The PCC is back, and it basically can still do everything that it did in the last game. You can still make your watchtowers. They mentioned that you still have the ability to make the timefall shelters, and that you can still heal your cargo in pretty much the same way. We still have rubber bullets, and it seems like the lethal weapons either no longer exist or are very difficult to find, as no one has mentioned a lethal weapon. They have only mentioned rubber bullets, but that doesn't appear to mean that Voidouts are off the table. I've heard multiple people say that Voidouts still happen if there's a body, if you die, things like that. Clearly, I think this is Hideo's way of acknowledging the fact that most people, I say most, I don't know that. A lot of people wanted more combat. Not me. I was fine with what we kind of had going on, but it would probably add interest, and so I think he addressed those concerns while still staying true to himself, which is, he believes in more of a passive approach to warfare and such, and so I think that's why we only have these rubber bullets. I think it was him kind of merging the two ideals. If we want more weapons, then they have to be non-lethal. Weapons that are typically lethal would be a sniper rifle and a grenade launcher. In this game, however, they appear to be non-lethal. You do get a sniper rifle, they say fairly early in the game, maybe one of the first sort of side missions that you're able to get. You will be gifted a sniper rifle with non-lethal rounds. A lot of people really enjoyed those because you could interact with the action from afar. Another combat weapon that was, I believe, gifted from a side mission, but I not confirm that, is the grenade launcher, and that grenade launcher appears to be launching the holographic grenades. However, I will say that the naming system of holographic grenade implies that there are definitely other grenades in the game. Otherwise, they would just call it grenade. So hopefully we'll get some more knowledge about the other grenades in the game. It appears that alternate events can happen to different players. There's no one storyline, whereas it felt like most of the BTs were fairly scripted in Death Stranding 1. It does appear there is less of a script in Death Stranding 2, so no playthrough should be the same. It appears that we have dynamic weather, obviously, that is semi-scripted, I think, in the same terms as rainfall and timefall, not just rainfall. Timefall was in the first game. What we seem to notice, though, is that there are a couple events we talked about. The Red Samurai seems to have a missable event, and then we also have, let's see, they said that they interacted with a ship that was in the sky that dropped a bunch of Tarmen, is how they described it. So the BTs from the first game that Higgs would usually control, they would grab you and then drag you to like a whale or something. Those appear to have dropped out of an airplane onto this player, and they say that they are the only player that encountered this, and that no other players had that experience. So perhaps we'll have more unscripted or random events happening to us. They said this was in just a normal side mission and that they were not doing anything special, so it shouldn't have been a story mode or event that they triggered or anything. The Red Samurai event is interesting to me because the person that witnessed it said that they stumbled upon a bandit camp, and it was a very early bandit camp in the game, which implies to me the first few hours of the game. Said that when they showed up, they saw a lot of the red robots, which I assume are the ones that we've been seeing, that we assume are Higgs's robots, but we don't know, and that it was a gray fox, crazy killing-esque scene, and that Red Samurai was in there just cutting things down, and that they sort of scampered off, that they didn't want to get, I guess, interact with Red Samurai. So that's the only thing I've heard about the Red Samurai scene, and that I believe is the one that is missable, because other interviewers asked Hideo's team about this, and they said, yep, if you missed it, you just missed it. So that's cool. We also know that there are animals in this game, which is different than the first game. There were really only butterflies in the first game, and now we have kangaroos, ostriches, and it appears like many different things, like the quokka. Now, in terms of animals, we learned in the last video that you can save these animals and take them to basically a sanctuary. So I think there's kind of a little petting zoo in the game, which I'm excited about. I'm sure you'll be able to take photos with them. What we learned is that you can get these animals there in two ways. You can either knock them out and carry them whenever they're knocked out, or the other way that most people did it is you can get pretty close to them and grab them. You also have a tranq gun is what it's called, I think, and you can basically tranquilize enemies, or I assume you can tranquilize animals as well. Now, the Skilled Up speaker, I don't know his name, but the man from Skilled Up did say that someone told him that the kangaroos could punch you, but he didn't know if they were just kind of joking with him, but he said they appeared to be serious, and if kangaroos can punch you in the game, that's hilarious, and I love that. Briefly on let's segue into vehicles. So the vehicles can be modular. You can kind of pick and choose what you want on your vehicle. It appears that there are going to be multiple vehicles, and there will still be a garage function. There was I can't remember if it was on Discord or in my comments, but someone didn't think that they would be able to make their own vehicles, but it's pretty much exactly like Death Stranding 1. There's still a garage. You will unlock vehicles as you go, and you can unlock upgrades to those vehicles. They said that vehicles were easy to find. They're pretty abundant. I think if you've played Death Stranding 1 for very long, you know that you will run into a vehicle if you're not paying attention and destroy all of your cargo because they're just on the roads. They just kind of pop up. They did say that one of the things that you can get is an auto turret that will just shoot while you're driving. You can get something that grabs packages as you drive by. Kind of similar to like the sticky handgun, I think, from the first video game. And let's see, what else about vehicles? Really, they just said that it was fun and that you could upgrade them from different side missions. We also have something called a tri-cruiser, and they said that it has wheels that turn into almost like blades and will allow you to go up mountains more easily. It'll kind of put the blades into the ground and climb up the mountain. In terms of the Magellan, we have no ability to drive it so far. We'll talk a little bit about that when we get to the episode list. We do get the ability to fast travel both outside nearby it and inside it. They said that you can fast travel to the different kind of areas, distro, villages, cities, however you want to refer to it. Basically, you can just kind of teleport to the different areas. It's really just Fragile's ability given to the Magellan. The other thing is, they mentioned if you use the Magellan's teleport ability inside the Magellan, like from the screen menu, that you get a special animation or transition, but they didn't describe it as anything super special. They just said that it was different and it was cool. So I don't know if this is telling us that it will be Lou's animation that we've seen in the trailer where the Magellan comes out of her mouth. They didn't seem excited about it, and they also didn't mention anything about Lou or that when they mentioned this animation. So it's possible that that part of the trailer has nothing to do with the loading screens like we first thought. Next up, I'm going to talk about the landscape details that I was able to figure out from their video. Again, if you haven't watched the first video, I've covered some things already. This will only be the new stuff I've found. They say that the gatequakes and earthquakes will crumble mountains in real time around you while you're walking. We've seen a little bit of that in the trailer. That's just confirming that it will occur while you are actually moving in the game. Unfortunately, though, the cutscenes do still seem to be pre-rendered, so unlike something, say GTA, where you are actually able to move inside the cutscenes and have like a real-time cutscene, that does not seem to be the case. The cutscenes still seem to be very scripted and very much already like pre-filmed. We have, for the landscape, they've referred to it as Zelda-like exploration. You still can't go everywhere that you could probably go in an open world like Zelda with the climbing mechanics, but they said that there are so many less red spots on the map that you can pretty much go wherever you want, and that the mountains really aren't that difficult to traverse. You're allowed a lot more creativity in how you get places. I've personally talked about the Odradek several times in my theory videos. It doesn't appear to function in exactly the same way as it did before, although no one has mentioned that in any live streams. It's just noticeable that it doesn't seem to target as quickly or as much in the trailer, but that could just be the way they filmed it. We know right now that the Odradek still has the scanning function and will show us the landscape yellow, blue, or red, and that the Odradek now has an attached flashlight that you can turn off and on during nighttime. We also know that in regards to the Odradek, that it's still attached to Sam, and that it can still basically target point. I assume it's still attached to Lou as well, as she appears to be in our pod at different times. Lou was mentioned just a couple times, and it's interesting because they just talk about Lou not crying as much. They say in the 30 hours that they played that Lou only cried a couple times, and from the trailer we have heard her laughing quite a bit. And someone did bring up, does this mean that Lou is like more bloodthirsty? I'm more into fighting. I'm not sure. It could just be when you don't have a body, that you're way less afraid of things because you don't get hurt if you have no body. Speaking of landscapes and walking, something that was integral to the first game was the music. We now have a music player. We talked about that in the last video. Something that I'm not sure I mentioned in the last video is the music player can only be played when you're on the chiral network, which is incentive to get people hooked up so that you can listen to your personalized playlist. We now know that you can make your own playlist and you can put songs on repeat. They said that it will show up on the user interface in, I think, the bottom left corner. It'll have the artist and the song title, and that the way that you get these music songs is that came out so silly. The way you get these songs is that as you progress through the story, you will unlock licensed music, and then that licensed music can be played anywhere with the chiral network. Briefly, speaking of licensed products, something that I was super curious about is would we get a Red Bull brand deal because of Lou's wings? Red Bull gives you wings. Kind of a joke, but when asked about it, the live stream folks just said that they couldn't talk about it, and they gave nothing away. But that to me implies, yes, there is some sort of brand in the game, because if you're not allowed to talk about it, that means there's something to not talk about. So I think it has something to do with licensing. I know they're not allowed to talk about licensed music, but I do think we're going to get some sort of license in the game towards branding. So that's fun. Hopefully it'll be something that we know of. We also have the 5-star system that still exists. They did say, however, that at 3 stars you will get a gift or unlock an item. They said that none of those people in their little section had actually 5-starred anything, so they didn't really know what happened once you hit a 5-star, if there was some really large gift that you would get. But they did say that the 5-star system is still there. You also still have timefall. It will still affect your cargo. We still have the like system. You're still able to like people's PCC structures. You're able to get likes from cargo that you pick up, likes from the distros that you drop things off to. They said that one of the things, on the distro menu that you could often do is press or hold down triangle and rearrange your cargo. They said that still exists, and that there's actually a shortcut to it. When you press on the D-pad, you're actually able to just sort of quick select rearrange my cargo, which is really awesome, because if you're running along grabbing things and you get off balance in Death Stranding 1, it is pretty easy to fall. So this is nice that there's basically just a shortcut to rearrange your gear. We'll use this to segue into the skill tree. We talked a lot about that in the last video. The only thing I really found is that they said the more that you do a certain thing, the more it levels up. So I do think the more you walk, the better you get at maybe carrying cargo and not falling over. It appears that the more that you work on a skill, the more it upgrades. Just like in real life, if you're working out, you're going to get stronger. So that's a fun skill tree option. We also have the memories we talked about last game, that you can unlock skill points and sort of immediately upgrade something, and that those skill points are allowed to be redistributed every time you have a mission, which is kind of an interesting concept. Usually, like Elden Ring, you're locked in. It sucks. Like, you're stuck there unless you go and you buy a potion, something like that. Even in The Witcher, you had to spend a lot of points to rearrange your point system. So it's interesting that the only thing you have to do in order to change your skill is before a mission, you go in and you rearrange your skill points and kind of adjust those based on what you think you need. If you need more stealth, if you need to be able to carry more. This is not confirmed, but it's how I understood them to be speaking, is that the skill points are things that go on your backpack, basically. I'm not sure that I've understood that correctly, but it kind of sounded like you could put things on your backpack to level things up. So, I don't know. Take that as you will. I'm not sure I got that right. We're going to go ahead and move into kind of what I'm calling like the episodical segment. There's a lot of stuff that we've learned about where things might go in the game, when things are happening timeline-wise. And if you're not interested in knowing anything about side missions, about Higgs, about characters, about the actual storyline beats that are coming, then this is where I would turn it off. I'm going to talk about those, and then I'm going to jump into breaking down gameplay footage. I'll make sure to have the timestamp so that if you want to skip this particular section and go just to theory, you can. But let's get started. Here's what we know so far. We know that the trailer says that we should not have connected, but all of the live streamers and people who did the gameplay said that they've not found any reason that that's in there. Nothing's happened in the game to really make them go like, oh my gosh, why did we do this? But they all said that they felt like it could be ramping up to that. So with that in mind, let's move forward. We know that Sam and Lou head home. They meet Fragile there. Fragile says Deadman is being attacked by ABT and that he needs to go to Mexico in order to save Deadman and hook up this system. We know that the system that they're speaking of is the Automated Porter Assistance System. Now, that is a pass with an S on the end, and that is an AI delivery system. The reason that we don't have Fragile Express or bridges or anything anymore, we've now learned that they were basically put out of business by these automated porters, this AI system, and that the people who create this APAS AI system is APAC with a C on the end. So the Automated Public Assistance Company, the people who are making the roads and most of the clothing that we've seen, they also produce these robots called APAS AI, and they are the ones delivering everything. However, this, and I mean this in a not a bad way, but the word I'm going to use is undeveloped countries. The way they said it is that in these undeveloped countries, they don't have the AI yet, and so they're still using porters like Sam. So basically, that's the reason we see Sam with APAC cargo on his back in the very beginning of the trailer. It's because he is over the UCA Mexico border, and he's still delivering and porting over there, hiding out from bridges. Now, apparently things don't go well for him once he gets to Deadman. We're not actually sure if he gets there. No one has said if he actually got to Deadman, meets him, sees him. I've heard zero on Deadman, and that worries me because I am worried that he gets, taken somewhere or something. But apparently after he heads that way, something happens. We don't appear to know what. And they say that Mexico is the tutorial area. It's about 5 to 7 hours long. And that we start to notice kangaroos and such. And so we basically figure out that these things are traveling through a plate gate. And then Fragile tells us, hey, you got to go to Australia. Now, the unfortunate part about this is that no one talks about Higgs. No one talks about Lou. And I think this is one of the story beats. We were told that there were 3 parts of the story that they were not allowed to speak about. I'm assuming this is that part. So I don't know at what point Lou and Fragile are attacked in this. If it is when he gets to Deadman, and that's why maybe they're not allowed to talk about Deadman. Maybe it's something that correlates to that. I don't know. And then it has to be before they go to Australia because he's in his own shelter, like he's hiding out. And they say that whenever he arrives to his home, it's kind of freaky because you get there and there's like a giant BT there, but that it's a hologram that he put there to keep people from finding his home. So that's a fun little lore piece that he's using that to his advantage. Which does imply that BTs are still incredibly dangerous and are still a big issue. Something that we didn't really understand is at the end of the last game, the timefall fell on Lou and Sam, and they weren't affected by it, implying that the timefall was no longer doing bad things. But at some point, it must have come back because obviously either BTs were so scary everywhere that they just permeate people's, trauma responses. Or since it's only been 11 months, if BTs aren't really around because the timefall isn't really around, then people are still scared enough that if they saw something they wouldn't know that the timefall was done with. And the other thing is that they were in the chiral network, so it could be that you have timefall until you connect the chiral network, because I mean, when Lou was brought back to life, we were on the chiral network. Amelie's beach was being closed off, so who knows? But it could also be when her beach was officially closed, maybe timefall came back. They say that the game starts with, in their words, an incredible Wood Kid song with Lou and Sam. I'm going to go ahead and assume that that is Into the Wilder. It probably starts us off. It's probably pretty emotional to see Lou for the first time and just be back in the game. I think that's going to be a big moment for a lot of returning players. Beyond that, I'm going to talk about pieces of the episodes and just where I think things go, because that's the only solid evidence we have. We know that they got to the end of episode 6 and that they felt like they were going to go somewhere else, but they didn't know where. They were assuming another continent. I'm going to probably assume that they're going to go to the beach, because we eventually have to get to the area where the Magellan men are and the Titans, but we'll get there eventually. We'll learn. Let's talk about preppers really quick. One of the things is we know about the preppers is that they give us gifts, and it's how we're going to unlock things. It appears that these side missions have kind of taken the place of the forced unlocks that you would have to do with the 5 stars. One of the missions that they talked about, and they didn't give anything away, so, I don't know, but you deliver pizza ingredients at night, and then you deliver a pizza, and this has to occur in episode 1 through 6, so I don't know where we're delivering it to. It can't be to Peter Englert, because Sam should know at the end of Death Stranding 1 if we say that the platinum version of the game is the canon version of the game where you've unlocked everything, as Sam would have probably done if he was a real person, then he would know that Peter and Higgs are the same person, and that Higgs was the one ordering the pizzas that gave him the lethal weapons in the game. Now, the issue is that we are pretty much told, unless they're lying, that we don't meet Higgs in episode 1 through 6. We don't know what his deal is. We don't learn anything, so we probably have not seen him or haven't spoken to him, haven't got any dialogue from Higgs. Unless this is another Peter situation where he's using a different name, this probably isn't pizza for Higgs. What I will say, we'll go ahead and talk about it here. They said that they did not meet the ghost mechs until hour 26 and 30-hour playthrough, and that they still know nothing about Higgs. So episode 1 through 6 is what they got to play. Some of them were able to finish and get to the point where they were no longer allowed to play any further, and at that point they had just met the ghost mechs, meaning, to my assumption, they're not including Red Samurai in Ghost Mech, so we can kind of assume that they are different factions, if they are related at all, and that we see a clip in the gameplay footage that says a mysterious mech, and that's the giant robot squid that Sam is fighting, and we know that's Higgs' stuff because it's got the Ghost Mech symbol on it. So at that point, I assume in episode 6, we still haven't met Higgs, and we still do not know in-game what Ghost Mech is. Another thing that they mentioned is they kind of jokingly call it the Tron scene, but it's where the motorcycle is on the highway and it's coming for Sam, and they said that did not happen in their playthrough. So his attack from that motorcycle that jumps out of the tar has to be episode 7 or later. Let's talk about Neil. We know that he appears in episode 6, Conflagration. Thank God I was able to say that word correctly. If you don't know, conflagration is basically a fire over a large area that burns a lot of things. And when you look it up, its synonyms are kind of morbid. There's fire, blaze, and holocaust. So a large amount of people are dead. We know that it's very similar to Cliff's scene, where he exists in a pocket dimension, and basically, I haven't been able to figure out how we get there, how we get into this pocket dimension, if it's going to be the same sort of storm that sucks you up, or if you just sort of fall into it. We don't know yet. They said they really don't know anything about Neil other than you enter that scene in the trailer. That is the opening of that boss battle. And he basically does the symbol, like he's going to walk towards you, and the boss battle starts. They said that the fireworks are in real time, that it is the most beautiful battle ever. And they did say that the battle isn't terrible. They kept referring to it as a Metal Gear Solid 4 sort of battle, where you kind of run, hide, shoot, and that it's not a difficult battle. But they actually said that was a good thing because it was just gorgeous. They said it was an incredible thing to see on a base PS5. We also appear to get Tomorrow and Rainy's stories in episode 1 through 6, so we're not sure. I've not heard anyone say how we meet them or anything like that. My suspicions are that after we deal with the dead man issue, and possibly after Lou has passed away or whatever has happened to Lou, that we are going to encounter Tomorrow and Rainy. It doesn't tell us, and I've not heard which one we meet first. I'm assuming that we meet Rainy first, because in the trailer she appears to be conversing with the crewmates while Tomorrow sort of sits in the background and just watches them, which implies to me that maybe Tomorrow is less of a part of the crew so far. Now, on top of Tomorrow and Rainy being in episodes 1 through 6, I'm assuming that we meet them in Australia, and that might give credence to the idea. Now, Tomorrow doesn't have an Australian voice, but it would be interesting if there was one extinction entity per continent, and Amelie was ours, and maybe Ellie Fanning will be Australia's, but who knows. That also brings me to a point that I almost forgot to speak about in regards to Rainy. We now know that she is the reason that Dollman is young, allegedly. I still can't tell if that's just supposed to be kind of a joke in the game, that he takes a shower with Rainy and that's how he stays young. However, we have old Sam in the trailer, and a lot of us assume that he'd either got caught in timefall, that because the beach was no longer working the way it normally did, that he kind of sped up his aging. Because he was connected to the beach prior, he would age more like Bridget, which was extremely slowly. So a lot of us thought maybe his natural age had caught up with him. However, what may have happened is that he got this progressive aging somehow, timefall, whatever. But likely, now that we know Rainy's issue, he probably just gets de-aged by Rainy if he's not repatriating. Something that I want to try, but probably won't because I'm a weenie, is that in the game, I want to know what happens if you die immediately. Because Lou is no longer in a pod. She's no longer connected to you in any way. I mean, physically, you're holding her, but like spiritually, stuff like that, she's no longer connected to you through the pod or anything. So I'm wondering, what happens if you die in the beginning of the game? Do you still get the baby doll in your throat? Is Sam no longer able to repatriate? I've heard no one talk about this, and if you have, I'm so interested. That's like my burning question. Can he still repatriate? And if he can, what does it look like? How does it work? What is the scene? Does it change once Lou has been killed by whoever? You know, I just want someone to go walk off the cliff in the first 5 minutes and tell me what is going on. Because in Death Stranding 1, you could die in the first section, which many of us did because we were stupid and just fell off that cliff because we weren't looking. So yeah, I'm very interested in that. But I'm thinking Rainy will be the reason that both Fragile and Sam are no longer old, most likely. If that's the truth, then that means Fragile and Rainy already know each other, and that Rainy helped Fragile in the very beginning of the game, like pre-game. If Rainy didn't help Fragile, then there will be another de-aging mechanic in the game, most likely. But I'm kind of thinking she probably is the reason we don't have old Sam later on. Something that I forgot to mention is that Hideo said in his podcast, which I had to read through a translator, so hopefully I got this right, is that you can adjust Sam's hairstyle. He can now grow his hair out, he can shave, which is such a fun mechanic. That is that's a mechanic we should have had from day one, because who doesn't like choosing their hairstyle? I mean, it's a huge thing in all RPGs. Some people like ponytails, some people like it shaved, some people like long hair. And when it comes to males, it's really fun to pick if you have a mustache, a beard, and that will bring so much personalization to each of these Sam runs. So that's exciting. Let's talk about what else we know. So we have found out some of the prepper names. We know that there is an artist that will send you paintings. We don't know what of. They did not tell us, but there is an artist who sends paintings. We know that there are some wildlife rehab type areas, so I assume there'll be preppers in those. We have Ben Riviera and Norberto Puente, and we also have the Via Libre, so we have the free village. What I love about this is these names sound like people that are in my neighborhood. I mean, Norberto, I love that. Like, I have Alberto down the road. And so it's really fun. Like, I love that we're getting like pretty realistic names compared to the UCA, where we had Deadman and Heartman and Fragile. Even Fragile's name is kind of weird. But these are very normal names. Now, I don't know if maybe I should look that up real quick. Okay, this is funny because, I mean, Riviera is a name of, like, people everywhere. But anyway, it does mean river or coastal region, and Puente means bridges, so that is funny. They are still naming them very similar to, like, John Die Hardman. That's disappointing. I thought we were getting really realistic names, which I guess they are in a sense. I mean, Ben Riviera, that sounds so normal. Much more normal than Dead Man. But I think that is the end of everything that I have been able to find, all the new information. I am going to end this video here and post the gameplay footage separately, simply because I don't think my computer can render over 40 minutes of the 4K footage. And leave anything down below that you want to talk about. I am probably just going to give you guys an extra video here in a couple days because I have everything already scheduled out on the community page, and honestly, that's a lot of work to move everything around. So I'll just give you guys an extra video. So be expecting that, and this will come out. This is Thursday. I'll try to set it out on like Sunday. I'll give you guys a little bonus weekend footage, but I'm going to go break down that footage, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!